the partner visa, employer sponsorship visas, global talent visa, federal budget, and the fee waivers. So today we have in our panel Mr. Prince from Brisbane. So he's going to talk about employer sponsorship visas. We have Tejas from Adelaide, who's going to talk about fee waiver and refunds for certain visas that are available now. Parth from Melbourne, who will be talking about federal budget and allocations and the breakdown and explain the entire breakdown in detail. Mr. Dharminder from Perth, who is our migration agent as well, will be talking about a partner visa. And myself, I'm Vaibhav Patel, and I'm going to talk about a global talent independent program, a global independent program actually. So now, without wasting our time, because we are already late on our live session today, so we are going to take questions as well. So if you do have a questions, you can always put the questions in the comment box, and we will try and take as many questions as we can. But I hope you guys understand as well that if we run out of the time, we have 1 hour window, so we'll try to cover as many topics as possible. And I would also request our panelists to try and make sure that they finish their explanations in 5 minutes or so that we can move on to the questions, because I think that's going to give us more detailed explanations. Anyways, we will cover all those details when people ask questions. So first of all, I think Prince from Brisbane will be able to talk about an employer sponsorship visa. So Prince, thank you very much for joining us today and taking a time out from your busy schedule. I know you are a very busy man. So if we can explain the employer sponsorship visas, mainly 482, 186, and 494,
Sure.
briefly.
Thank you for the introduction, Vaibhav. Hello, everyone. As Vaibhav mentioned, Prince from Brisbane office. So the reason why we all together today and discussing a few different topics, which we thought that will be beneficial to all of you who are watching this video. In terms of employer-sponsored visa, I think it's really important for all the guys out there, to understand how important it is for them to understand how this process works, because of the general skill migration category. Due to the recent budget quota, which has been announced from the federal government, there has been reduction of numbers in general skill migration for 189, and if you look at for the state nomination visas as well, the numbers has been reduced significantly. So lately, I think I'm pretty much sure, all the other cities have got this hype in employer-sponsored visas. So basically, there are 3 or 4 different categories for employer-sponsored visa. First class is 482, which is in a different way we say temporary skills shortage visa. The other one is ENS, which is employer nomination scheme. Subclass is 186, and the third is employer-sponsored regional visa. So it's called subclass 494 visa. So there are different criteria for different visa category to be met. Basically, any of these employer-sponsored visa, there are mandatory requirements which needs to be met. First of all, you need to have an employer to sponsor you, and you must have minimum 2 years to 3 years of work experience in order for you to apply for employer-sponsored visa. So let's start off with, I would say, for a 2 visa, you have to have minimum 2 years of full-time work experience to apply for 482 visa. Now, depending on the occupation, what occupation you're applying for, it could be sitting in the long-term list or short-term list. Depending on that, there is a pathway towards permanent residency. So if your occupation, for an example, especially I will take accountant as an option here, because accountant has got very limited options out there at the moment. So for an example, if you've been working as an accountant and you got 2 years of full-time work experience, you can look into this option for, applying for 482 visa. So if you apply for this visa, you get a visa for 4 years. And after 3 years down the track, you may be eligible to apply for ENS transition stream, which is a direct permanent residency visa. The other option, say for marketing, if marketing, as everybody knows, it falls on the short-term list. So if your occupation falls on the short-term list, you can apply for a temporary visa, temporary skill shortage visa. You get a visa for 2 years. However, it can be extended only for another 2 years as well. There is no direct pathway for the permanent residency under employer nomination scheme. But as I said, you get the visa for 2 years and you get additional 2 years after that. It doesn't lead to PR, but you can make your ways out of that towards general skill migration. Like, if you want to, you may be eligible in your particular state for 190 or 491. So you can look into that pathway for permanent residency as well, but it doesn't lead to direct permanent residency under employer nomination scheme. So I've already discussed about TSS visa. The second category is ENS direct entry. So there is a difference between a transition stream and a direct entry. So ENS transition stream is something you apply after having a TSS visa for minimum 2 to 3 years. Sorry, I would say minimum 3 years. So ENS transition stream is the pathway after TSS visa. However, ENS direct entry is a pathway which you can go directly, but as long as you have minimum 3 years of full-time experience and a positive skills assessment, and most importantly, you need an employer. So the employer can be based anywhere. It can be in a metropolitan city area or in a regional area as well. You can straight away apply for ENS direct entry. But make sure whichever occupation you're going for, you got to make sure that occupation falls in the relevant list of ENS direct entry category. For example, if you want to, say go as a cook to apply for ENS direct entry, even though you got a positive skills assessment and 3 years of full-time work experience and an employer to sponsor you, you may not be eligible to apply for ENS direct entry visa because the occupation of cook doesn't fall into that list. However, if you talk about chef, yes, it is possible. So, whatever your occupation is, if you have any doubt or concern, just get in touch with your nearest Aussizz office. You can, contact us and we can work it out if your occupation is eligible for ENS direct entry or not. And before I go any further, just make sure that this visa leads to the direct permanent residency because there's no waiting period. If your nomination and visa is approved, you will be a permanent resident directly. So it's not a point basis visa. It's not based on the invitation as well. So it's a completely separate category as compared to the general skill migration, which is entirely based on the state nomination or the points based system. So far, as I mentioned, TSS visa, ENS direct entry visa as well. The last category would be a skilled employer regional visa, which is 494 visa. For this visa, there are additional requirements again, but your employer must be based in regional area. That's very important. So if your employer is based in regional area, you can apply for this visa. Now, the benefit of going for 494 visa, there are certain occupation which doesn't fall under long-term or short-term list. However, this visa category allows you to have more options if you go into the ROL list, which is regional occupation list. If one of your occupation falls under that list, this is the visa you should be looking into because it gives you an opportunity to apply for the visa that leads to the permanent residency. So as I mentioned, 494 visa, business has to be in regional. Now, again, the requirements is pretty much similar to the ENS direct entry 186 visa. In this category as well, 494, you need to have minimum 3 years of full-time work experience along with a positive skills assessment and minimum 6 bands each in each module in all. So that's the minimum criteria. So it's pretty much equivalent to ENS 186 direct entry as compared to 494 visa. They're pretty much similar. The only difference is that the 494 visa has got a broad list for you to choose from. Let me give you an example, like for retail manager, basically. So we have seen a lot of refusals a couple of years back when Department of Home Affairs started refusing the application for retail managers for RSMS visa. So if you're one of those applicants where you've been working as a retail manager since then, if your application got refused in the past, if you've been working with the same employer and you're waiting for the tribunal to get back to you or for the hearing to go ahead and put your case up, but if you're in one of those situations, you should be looking into this visa option for yourself. So I'm pretty much sure anybody who has been working since 2018 or 17, they would have accumulated 3 years of work experience, and that makes them eligible for the skills assessment, and that makes them eligible to apply for this visa category 494 as well. And obviously, you would have applied for 187 visa if your employer was based in regional. If you're still with the same employer, there's a very good chance that you may get an approval from the Department of Home Affairs. And as I mentioned, it leads to the permanent residency as well. It wouldn't be straight away like ENS direct entry, but there is a waiting period for 3 years. After 3 years, you can apply for the permanent residency. But saying that, look, it's not a bad option considering that occupation is not in the long term and short term anymore. If it's still in ROL, there is an option towards permanent residency. The reason why I gave an option for retail manager, because there are plenty of applicants out there, but any occupation you see under regional occupation list, basically all these requirements apply to those positions as well. Now, apart from that, there are other visas, but like training visa and all of that, but we wouldn't be discussing more about the training visa. We are discussing about the visas, employer-sponsored visas, which leads to permanent residency, and which gives you an option to secure your future in Australia. So, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy down the track once all the panelists with the session, say about their own topics, and we will look into the questions, and I'm more than happy to answer. I'll pass it on to you, Weber.
Thank you very much, Prince. It's
Thank you.
a detailed explanation, and I am glad to announce as well that we have got a very good engagement on the video as well, and then people have started asking questions already. But before I go ahead, I know, Prince, I have a couple of questions to provide you. Probably, I think that's going to be relevant to our viewers as well. And thank you very much, viewers, as well, for joining us and taking your time out as well and watching this video as well. So, Prince, while you were talking about 186 and especially for accountants and the other occupations as well, and 494 and 482. So, I just have a quick question about the 482, right? So nowadays, especially for accountants, probably they might not be able to secure a skilled visa through either 189 or 190 or 491. So these are the most affected people, I think, the applicants. So, can you probably help us understand that, let's say, and somebody doesn't have an experience as an accountant, and I'm aware that, they can always go on a student visa and gain some experience and then apply for a 482. Or let's say, for example, and the next question is about some occupations which are not on the skill list, like not on the medium and long-term skill list, which is like, for example, as you picked up marketing, So that's the second question as well. So for those people, do you think if they have work experience, probably, they can go to regional area and find an employer in the regional area so that they can get a 482 visa and then later on convert to 494 and then later on go to 191 and then get the permanent residency. This could be a pathway.
Sure, definitely, Weber. Thanks for the question. I'll start off with the accountants. So, especially with the accountants, for applicant who doesn't have the work experience, obviously, for them, going through a pathway of training visa, that is something they can consider. Now, I have seen applicants in the past that, they haven't got any work experience in Australia. However, they have got work experience from their home country. So, especially for those applicants who have got some experience in the past, and if they've been here only a couple of years or 3 years or so, but they have prior coming to Australia, they have worked as an accountant back home, they can consider that experience as well towards applying for TSS or 482 visa. What it means that if they go with that pathway, that gives them an option to apply for permanent residency down the track under ENS transition stream. Now, for those applicant who doesn't have enough experience either back home or in Australia, for them, if they have applied for temporary graduate visa, they should start looking into the profession in the same occupation, like finding a job in the same occupation. That will definitely help them. But in case if they're short of 2 years down the track, they can say, for an example, if anybody on a temporary graduate visa have got only 1 year of experience as an accountant, they can look into the pathway of going on a training visa, which is 407 visa, which allows them to work full time. Now, there has been a lot of discussions in the past whether the experience on a training visa, will that be counted towards 482 visa or not. It depends on case to case. I wouldn't say that there is a concrete answer to that. Depending on the profile, depending on the qualification, depending on the work experience the person has, it is possible to consider the experience towards 482 visa pathway. But again, if anybody has 2 years, either from home, back home, or in Australia, they can apply for 482 visa. Now, this is for accountant, but specifically for those applicants whose occupation doesn't fall under the long-term list, if it's in the short-term list, my recommendation to all those applicants would be to find an employer in a regional area. Prefer to find an employer in a regional area. So the benefit of that would be, in case if you apply for a 482 visa, you can look for an option down the track towards 494 visa as well. At the same time, that gives you an opportunity to apply for state sponsorship as well, in case if that particular occupation comes up in the state occupation list. So for a long-term occupation, it can be in any part, like, it can be in metropolitan or regional, that doesn't make much difference. But for specifically for short-term occupation, I would say prefer the regional area. And myself being in Queensland, Gold Coast is one of the hotspot. There are a lot of IT companies, finance companies, engineering companies, manufacturing companies. If any of your occupation falls under short term, try to find a job in a regional area, and it can be near to in New South Wales, it could be Wollongong or Newcastle. All these cities are well developed, so try to find an occupation employer in a regional area. That will definitely help you down the track, and you can look into either 494 or on the basis of 482 visa down the track. It leads to permanent residency as well.
Right. Thank you very much, Prince. It's been a great help answering this question. Now, I think yes, you've rightly said that probably if your occupation is on a short-term skilled occupation list and you don't have much options available in the big cities like Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, then probably go and find a job employment in the regional area. So that opens up two doors from there, basically either 494 or 491, right? So that's a very smart solution that you've come up with, Prince. Thank you very much for that. Now we've got a lot of questions, and again, I would probably like to restate that anybody watching this video, you feel free to put in your questions, and we'll definitely try and address those questions now. So I'm going to take you before we move to the next topic. So we have a first question from Zubair Naeem asking about updates on 189, please. So Parth, I think you're going to cover about the federal budget and allocations. So this question is a very generic question, but I guess what client wants to know is when do you think the invitations will start? And now that you know the allocations, can you put some light on what are the chances for 189, knowing that it's only 6,500 seats allocated to it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Vaibhav. Actually, about the invitation prediction, actually for 189 visa, as you might have already heard that department has reduced the quota for 189 program to 6,500. Last year it was around 16,600 applicants that department was granting visa under 189 category. So looking at the quota they have provided, actually it looks very difficult to get invitations under 189 program with 90 points or lesser. So most likely for the rest of the year, it looks like the cutoff for 189 program will remain most likely at 95 points or higher. And it's also possible that department may only select applicants under some specific occupation, giving priority to maybe health sector occupations. Because we have seen that for state-sponsored visas, some of the states has announced that for the rest of the year, they are only going to select applicants under occupations which are which are in critical sector, which can be helping in either economic recovery or a COVID recovery. So looking at that, it's possible that department may also invite applicants under 189 category under these occupations. However, until the next rounds happen, we don't know what occupations particularly they are going to invite under. So most likely we recommend you to wait for the upcoming invitation rounds probably in the November and see under which occupations department is inviting. But when it comes to the points recommend most likely will be going up. If it is about only particular occupation, they will be inviting such as like only health sector occupations. If they are going to invite, it's possible that you may see the cutoff going on even around 65.70 points, because you might have seen that recently some of the invitation rounds happened in between July to October. Applicants under medical occupations have been invited with even 80-85 points under nursing category, and for medical laboratory scientist department have selected most of the people even with 65 points. So if department is only going to select applicants under particular occupations, then it's possible that the cutoff will remain very low, but that is only for that occupations. And if it is they are going to invite applicants under all of the categories, then the point cutoff will remain at very high end. So that will be most likely 95 or 100 points, something like that.
Thank you very much, Path, for providing the information. Now that leads to my next question, and I would like to request you to quickly cover up federal budget allocations and breakdown. And what do you think to expect. Now, in my personal view, I think it's still not a bad news. I think it's a good news for most of the candidates. Yes, while I understand that many of the applicants would have been affected, but if you see the positive side, the number of visas, total number of visas are still 160,000. Which I personally expected that it might go down because of the COVID-19 impact, or overall pandemic situations. So I think it's still a good news. But yes, I understand that the competition will grow up. But Parth, if we can quickly cover up about the federal budget, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Sure, Bob. So, like as you might be knowing that the budget for every financial year generally get announced in the month of July, because that's the start of the financial year. This year, because of the COVID concerns issues, the department has actually announced the budget for this year on 6th of October, last week Tuesday, where department has been given quota of the same which was for the last year, 160,000 permanent residency visa grants under different sectors. So when we look at so mainly under this sector, we can look at two streams, which is like the skilled category visas that can be employer sponsored visas, or the point tested visa, GSM, general skill migration visas, business innovation visa category, and then global independent talent independent program. That is all part of skilled category. And then the other category is family category, where like partner visas, parent visa, child visa, that are included in that category. So as per the quota allocated this year in this financial year program, the quota all over, the total quota is the same as the last year, which is 160, as even advised by Vaibhav. However, when we look at the quota allocated under skilled program, last year out of 160,000 quota allocated under the full migration program, around 108,000 applicants were kind of number of visas were granted, like in a way considered under like the skilled categories. However, this year that quota from skilled visa categories, it has been reduced to just 79,600. That is approximately reduction of around 30,000 applicants. And when you look at the family category, the quota last year, it was allocated around 47,000 applicants, which has been increased to around 77,000 applicants. That is like increase in 30,000 applicants. So the 30,000 quota which has been reduced in skilled category, that has been given under family migration. Now, when we split up all the quota under skilled category, when you look at employer sponsored visa, last year the quota given for the employer sponsored visas were 30,000, which got reduced to 22,000 applicants. That's not that much change actually. So if you are still looking at employer sponsored visa, I think that is a better option this year. Probably looking at for the other point tested visa, the cutoff will remain high because of the number of quota being given allocated being very low. So that's employer sponsored visa. It's still a very good option. And department have also stated that they will be giving priority to employer sponsored visas where skill shortage cannot be filled by Australian permanent residents or citizens. So that is a good option though. Other than that, skilled independent visa, that is 189 visa. There are two streams under 189 skilled independent visa, that is a point tested stream and New Zealander stream. Including both of this category, the quota has been reduced to 6,500. From last year, the quota was 16,600, approximately 16,600 applicants. So that's like approximately 1/3 of the last year's quota. And that's where we were saying just now that invitations under 189 program will be very difficult looking at the numbers. Then after looking at the regional visas, where there are two categories, 494 employer sponsored regional employer sponsored visa and 491 the state sponsored visa, and the family sponsored visa. That category, last year the quota was around 25,000 people were going to get that visa. However, this year it has been reduced to just 11,200 applicants. So that's also half of the last year's quota. So you may see the requirements for the state governments might be tougher than last year. It's possible that state governments may only prefer applicants under some certain occupations, or they may add up some extra requirement of maybe having worked in regional area, or working maybe in the same occupation for 3 months, 6 months, something like that. However, most of the states, they haven't announced the requirements for this financial year, like the remaining financial year for the state nomination program. Most of the states are still inviting applicants, where the interim quota was allocated in between July to October this year. Then after, when we look at the state sponsored visa 190 visa category, last year the quota was approximately 25,000 people were going to get visa. However, only 11,200 visas will be granted. Maximum this number of visas will be granted this year. And business in innovation investment category, when you look at last year's quota was around 6,800 people, and which has been nearly doubled to 13,500 people. So department is actually focusing on business visa so that they can bring economic recovery in upcoming future. And then after the global talent visa, when you look at last year, this program was very successful, where people who are having some specific talent under 7 targeted sectors, which Vaibhav will be discussing in some time. So global talent visa, last year's quota was 5,000 people were going to get visa, and they got very close number, like they have granted around 4,100 visas last year out of that 5,000 quota allocated to the department under that category. And this year that quota has been tripled to 15,000 applicants. So if you have a specialized skills under 7 targeted sectors, then possibly you can also look at this option, because it has a higher priority processing. It doesn't require points, doesn't require higher English skills. It's just that you have to prove that you are highly talented in particular field, the 7 targeted sectors, and you could possibly get GTI, like the permanent residency under this program, the Global Talent Independent Program. And another category of skilled visa option is distinguished talent visa, where there was a quota of 200 people. That quota remained same, but for that category you must have internationally recognized talent, where, because when you just look at the quota, only 200 people will be granted visa under this category. Looking at that, you can understand that throughout the year, if they are only granting 200 people this visa, that means you must have a very high level of talent. However, the difference in GTI, Global Talent Independent Program, and this program, Distinguished Talent Visa, is that for GTI program, you must be talented in specific 7 targeted sector. And for Distinguished Talent Visa, your talent can be in any occupation, any sports activity, anything. It can be any academia sector, anything as such. So that's the difference. And when you look at the the family migration, last year the quota was 47,000, approx 47,000 people. This year they have increased to 77,000 people. That is also looking at the partner visa applications in queue as of now. Last year, department said that they will be granting approximately around 40,000 applicants the partner visas. However, this year they have increased to 72,000 applicants, because you might have seen that there is a long backlog of partner visas. So department have stated that out of the total quota allocated this year, they will be allocating most likely 75% of quota will be allocated to people who are currently in Australia. So their visas will be prioritized, and remaining 25% quota will be generally given to people who are offshore. Same way for skilled visa category, out of that 100% quota, if we look at total quota, if we look at, department stated that 66%, that is 2/3 of the total quota, will be allocated to people who are in Australia already. And out of remaining 33%, 22% quota will be allocated to people who are overseas under skilled categories, the other visa options we have talked about. And the remaining 11% quota will be allocated to people who are applying under family stream who are offshore. So 2/3 quota department is considering for the people who are in Australia. So that is still a benefit, because last year, if you have looked at, for last few years, if you have looked for, when you look at the 160,000 quota, more than 50, approximately 50, more than 50% quota was taken up by the people who are overseas. So looking at that, that is still a benefit for you. When we were saying that quota has been decreased in a way for 189, 190 visas. However, people who are in Australia will be given preference. So that way it's still a good news. So that's mainly about the budget for this year. And there are some policies which department was also saying that for partner visas, they will be the sponsors and the applicants will be required to sit for the English exam, or they will have to meet the English requirement. And that is only for the Australian permanent resident sponsors, not for the citizens actually. And that will be most likely implemented at the end of next financial year. So that's what it's about, the budget for this year. If we have any questions, we'll be covering that maybe at the end of the
Thank
session.
thank you very much, Parth, for providing such a detailed information. And now I would probably want to quickly move to the questionnaires because we are getting a stack of questions coming up. And but before I go there, while Parth was explaining, I'm sorry, I'm going out of the topic, which is the business visa. So business visa has got a high number of visas allocated now. But before I go to that question, I would like to tell our viewers that Aussizz Group not only provides services related to education, migration, and we also help students in enrolling in professional course in different institutions. And as well as apart from that, we have our websites where you can compare your policies, like health insurances, basically. So which is a getmypolicy.com.au, and Aussizz Group also has a NATI practicing app, which is CCL tutorials. So you can always prepare and for your test as well on one of our apps, which is CCL tutorials. As well as there is one more services that we have, which is called PTA tutorials, where you can practice your PTA tests. So apart from that as well, if you are looking for any assistance with these services as well, you can simply jump on our websites and follow the prompts, and you'll be able to also practice PTA test and NATI test and also compare the insurances. Now, sorry for going out of the questions, but Tejas from Adelaide is the right person probably who can answer this question. So Tejas, what I see is that business visas have been increased so much. So do you think the students who are in Australia, and probably there are many students I've seen that who are entrepreneurs, so they can always also look into this 188 visa, and probably if you can quickly spend few minutes on it and tell us how this can work.
Right. So hello everyone. This is Tejas here from Aussizz Group in Adelaide. I'm a registered migration here in Adelaide office. So the students who are looking to apply for the business visas as well, obviously they can, but it's a long-term process. So you have to create a base out of your current student visa or the graduate visa, and then eventually you will be able to apply for your business visa 188. So the best position will be obviously when you are studying. If you start investing in any local business, have an asset of 800,000 on your name, and you have invested in a business where the business turnover is at least 500,000, then you after 2 years you can probably apply for a business visa 188, which would be for 4 years and 3 months. And on that visa, you can do your business for 2 years more, and then you can apply for your permanent visa 888, which is the permanent residency of Australia. So I've seen a lot of Asian students starting going through that trend, where as soon as they come to Australia on a student visa, they would like to have their own business set up as well. So they either do the export business, or they do online business, or they do any other kind of small cafes or any other business. The business is doing at least $500,000 turnover as in revenue each year, and they have an assets back home on their name through either family heritage or those kind of things. At least $800,000, and then eventually they manage that business for 2 years, and then they can apply for that business visa. That's a standard business option if anyone wants to look at the business visa option. If they're based in South Australia, there is another visa called 408. It's an entrepreneur visa. If they have a special idea which can basically turn into a specific targeted business as a commercial venture, then they can apply for a nomination through state government. They will probably nominate you for 1 to 3 years for 408 temporary activity visa. And if you manage to convert your idea into a successful commercial business, then you can probably apply. They can nominate you for a distinguished talent visa as well as in a permanent residency through a state nomination itself. So if you don't have funds, let's say, but you have a very good idea and you are having someone who can support your idea as an investor, then you can probably look for this option as well as in 408 entrepreneur visa as well. That's only for the students who don't have funds or don't have other options. But definitely they can look into 188 visa. If while they're studying, they can either manage the business or even on their graduate visa 485, they can always explore that option. And as many of you know, Queensland has that small business ownership category as well. So if you're on a graduate visa, let's say, and you have been managing a business in a regional Queensland for 6 months, you would be probably eligible to apply for 491 visa in Queensland. And similar categories coming up to South Australia as well. We are still waiting for more information on that, which most likely will be coming in month of November. I'll cover up some announcement from News South Australia very shortly as well. but that the small business category can be another option for regional Queensland, Tasmania, and South Australia. So if you are a student with the entrepreneur skills or business mind, you can definitely explore in any of these states if you can, explore your options through that.
Right. Thank you very much, Tejas, for providing such a detailed information. And I know, your opinion matters a lot. So yes, business visa is, I think, something that the students who actually have entrepreneur skills can also look into it. Now we'll start taking questions. Now, first question is from Samim, who is asking the question about accountants in Queensland, who has 80 points at the moment. So, Prince, I think you are the right person who can answer this question. Can you please help us with that?
Sure. Well, with accountants, like especially in Queensland, I wouldn't say it's only Queensland. We all know what's happening with accounting invitations from the Department of Home Affairs and the way all the states are looking towards the accountant occupations as well, because the priority at this stage is more for the critical sectors occupation rather than something which doesn't fall under critical sector. However, depending on, if you're working as an accountant, depending what exactly which firm you work with or what sort of company you're associated with. I believe recently we haven't had an invitation for an accountant, but a friend of mine who's another migration agent in Brisbane, he received an invitation for an accountant. But this accountant, he works as an accountant for an aged care. So basically, that's where the Department of, basically this is where the state nomination, has focused that, okay, how he's contributing towards the pandemic situation. Being working as an accountant, he still received an invitation. So it's not that easy for an accountant to get an invitation. And again, with point system, it's not like, with points, 80 points is still more than enough. We had a news few months back from Queensland state government that they will be inviting the applicants on the basis of point system, but seems like it hasn't happened. It hasn't started happening yet. We already received 4 to 5 invitations from Queensland state government so far for nurses, marketing specialists, but all these invitation has been between like say 65 to 80 points. So we haven't had any invitation with a very high points criteria. So points is not an issue for the question you asked, Weber, but it's more of, waiting for the applicants to wait till December until Queensland release the full quota for the entire financial year, which is left over for entire financial year 2020 to 21. But at this stage, all I can say that everybody has to hold on and wait for the quota to be released and then look for your option.
Right. Thank you very much, Prince. And now there are a couple of more questions. I think I'll direct those questions to you before I go to the next one, which
Sure.
is 2 questions. Any update on 482? I think we have already covered those ones. And 482, I think the processing time right now is very uneven for any occupations which are on a the priority occupation list.
Correct.
Getting some priority, and we have seen that people getting the visa in 1 month's time as well if their occupation is on a priority list. And there is another question: what are the chances for accountant to get 186 visa?
So when you say 186 visa, I assume we are talking about the direct entry. So look, the quota for employer-sponsored visas is separate to the general skill migration quota. Like obviously the figure, if you look at the numbers, obviously the numbers are higher, and there is a very good chance, depending on the firm you work for, which sector they are performing in, which sector they are, operating the business in. There is a very good and high chance to get the occupation under ENS direct entry approved from the Department of Home Affairs. But yeah, there are certain criteria that needs to be met. So let me just recap it again, what I mentioned before. Anybody who were to apply for 186 direct entry as an accountant needs minimum 3 years of full-time experience and a positive skills assessment, which I assume most of the applicants would have, but meeting the requirement of 3 years full-time experience, that is something, you need to work on. In case if you don't meet that requirement, the applicant can go with a 482 pathway, and down the track, they can look into ENS direct entry as well. After working with the employer for another 1 year, they accumulate 3 years of work experience, and they can consider 186 direct entry after 3 years. So yeah, that's the way.
Experience. So now the next question was from Simi about 491 update. So as of now, none of the states have actually announced as 491 nomination requirements. So we're still waiting for them to to announce all the criteria, and then probably we can put more lights. But thank you very much for appreciating our work as well. She's appreciating that we are doing a good job by providing such information. So thank you very much, Simi. And now the next question is, what about 491 for Victoria Regional for a cook? So Parth, would you be able to take this question?
Yeah, sure. For 491 for Victoria, it looks like that Victoria, they are only going to sponsor people who are working under critical sectors, or maybe under some of the programming and engineering technologist occupation. So looking at the recent updates, it looks like that Victoria is not going to select any applicants under trade occupation. So most likely 190 and 491 program will be closed for all the trade occupations. However, we'll have to wait for the Victoria's update on the state nomination program for the rest of the year. So
Okay.
until that, it's not known, but then yeah.
Right. Thank you, Parth. And there's one more question coming up from Victoria while you're there. Systems analyst 90 and 95 points for 189 and 190 respectively. And currently in Victoria, what are the chances?
The same way, actually, if your occupation is under system analyst, 189 with 90 points, as we were saying, it looks like the department is not going to select applicants with 90 or lesser points, because the quota allocated for this year, this program planning year is very less for 189, and that's where invitation with 90 points, it looks very difficult. Possibility is that department may select applicants under priority migration occupation skilled occupation list, but until they invite any applicants, it's not known. So you'll have to wait and see. Same way for Victoria, as I said, they are planning to select applicants only under some critical sector occupations, and that's where even I cannot say much about the program because it's not announced as of now. Same way, department hasn't invited any applicants under 189 program after the budget got allocated. So hopefully wait for the next invitation round for the November month, and then you will see some updates.
Thank you, Parth. Now, Prince, next question for you is, Tufan is asking whether he's been working as an environmental consultant for last 2 years and more, and wants to know about 186 visa. Is it possible for him 2 years and 7 months actually? So do you think he or she can apply for a 186 visa direct into stream or any other visa?
Sorry, how much time frame you said as an environmental consultant? Was it 2 years or?
2 years and 7 months.
2 years and 7 months. Okay. And what was the name of the person who asked the question? Sorry. Irfan, is it?
Tufan.
Oh, Tufan.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Tufan, thank you so much for the question, my friend. As an environmental consultant, if you got less than 3 years, definitely ENS 186 entry visa is not the right visa straight away. However, there is an option you can consider. You can apply for, there are 2 steps involved in this process for ENS direct entry. You can apply for the nomination first, and you can wait for the visa, the processing time for nomination is about roughly, I would say, 4 to 8 months, roughly. I mean, I can't be accurate 100%, but it takes about 4 to 8 months. So if you wait for the nomination to be approved, I hope by that time you will complete your 3 years of work experience. And once you have 3 years of work experience, you can lodge your visa application to the Department of Home Affairs. So ideally, you should be looking into lodging the nomination application first. Wait for the time until you complete your 3 years. And once you complete your 3 years, you can lodge the visa application. So that would be the right way to go. But if your visa is expiring very soon or within a very short time frame in next month or so, the right way to go would be to apply for either 482 visa, or you can look for any other option and buy some more time until you complete your 3 years of full-time work experience, and then lodge the ENS direct entry visa 186.
Thank you very much, Prince, for the detailed information. And I'm very amazed and very happy to see that so much response, and we're getting so many questions that that I think we won't be able to cover all of them. But please feel free to put in the questions. If we can't cover up the questions in the live session, we will definitely go back and answer by replying to your messages individually. Now, before we move forward for further questionings from our YouTube channel and as well as Facebook, I would like to take some time now and get the information about the partner visa from Mr. Dharminder Singh in Perth. So, Mr. Daminder, I'm sure that the weather is very nice in Perth right now, and you're enjoying the weather as well. But now with the partner visa, so if you can, put in some light, and now that we know that the number of visas have been increased as well, the allocations for the partner visas in the family section, if you can cover up quickly about the partner visa as well as how this increase in the allocation will impact the visa grants.
Okay, well, a very good afternoon from, well, I don't have a backdrop down here to show how sunny actually Perth is, but trust me, it really is. It's beautiful. It's, I think, balmy and all the rest of it. So Dominda from Aussizz from Perth, so many things have been covered. And everybody, I'm sure, who have been tuning in for the last, how many minutes? 35, 40 minutes we've been running this? 1 hour? Yeah? It's all doom and gloom. Everybody's wondering where you are, what's going to happen, what's the timeline and whatnot. Time to get married. Time to get married. Time to find love. Time to fall in love. Because as Parth has just said, 72,300 is the allocation for spouses. Now think about it. It's not all doom and gloom. But I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of different kinds of visas. People already know about spouse visas. We just want to talk about if options are not there for you in terms of all the other stuff that the panel have spoken about, then if you are in a relationship or if you're going to get into one, this is the time, because processing time have decreased. Yeah, money has increased because the department wants to make money. That's fine, because they're going to weigh the balance out because of everything else. But it is really the best time to put a spouse application. Now, a lot of people ask us questions, and all of us are familiar with this, not just in our area of expertise. How fast or how soon can I get a visa? I'm like, whoa, hang on. If you're onshore and every other avenue has been exhausted, you want to put in an application, you still got to meet the requirements. Don't just jump and get all excited because, suddenly processing time has come down and they've increased the quota, which means they are still going to be vigilant. They are going to check that you've met the requirements, whether you are applying on a de facto. And speaking of de facto, very quickly, this is one thing I want to talk about. 12 months of de facto evidence is exactly 12 months. You could get around that in some shape or form if you haven't lived together and you don't have this ability to demonstrate all the other things, but we're not going to talk about that. We want to just talk about the panel that, Vaibhav, you are in charge of the questions that's coming through. We want the people who are listening in today right now. Something happened. Sorry, me, you. This is live. This is, by the way, I don't know what happened, Vaibhav. Is that all good?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I just saw the screen just move to you and me at the same time. Get the questions coming in specifically on whether they meet the requirements. It's not about me telling you what partner visa is all about. People already know that, right? So I didn't want to go into talking about someone who is, say, wanting to get married right now and the visa is going to be ending. Okay, fine. If you want to go and get married, then go. You need to do a notice of intention to marry. You need to serve for 31 days. But how do you demonstrate the genuineness? This is where a lot of people fall apart. I mean, how genuine is your relationship? Because the department is going to look and say, right, you were on a student visa or you were on a temporary graduate visa, you've exhausted all avenues, you had a few months left, and then you suddenly found a partner. If you got married, well and good. You still need to meet the requirements. There's still not an application that you can just blindly put in and then hope that it's just going to get approved. They are going to do due diligence to the veracity of your application, how genuine it really is. Now, genuineness can come into so many various forms. Like any normal relationship, you need to demonstrate that. I mean, do I want to get into that? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Shall I get into that, right? What are the rest of the panel? What do you guys think? Shall I get into the actual nuts and bolts of what a genuine relationship is?
Not really. I think, we have quite established in previous sessions as well. It's exactly. Right now, what we're trying to understand is a brief understanding of the partner visa and how the changes in the allocation will impact the visas. And as Parth mentioned before, that there is an announcement that next year, probably sometime end of next year, the department will also put in one more requirement on the partner visa applications where they have to meet certain English language requirement.
No, but that hasn't been approved yet, right? So that was just talked about, which freaked a lot of people out, because it really is meant that if you're going to sponsor someone now, that person who is sponsoring, firstly, if you're a citizen, you are exempted from this potential new legislation that might require you to do an English test, God forbid. So if you are a sponsor and if you're PR, if that goes through, then yes, you need to sit an English proficiency exam and you need to pass, including the person that you're sponsoring. But that's just been tabled, but it hasn't been passed just yet, just for the record, just in case people are wondering about that. So primarily that's a concern, but there must be a reason why the department has raised this to 72,300. Nobody really knows, but maybe to sort of stymie other applications, they want to bring it back to still what Path, you were saying 160 odd thousand is still the figure in terms of the allocation that we have down here, which is half of this allocation. Get married, find someone, go. Today is Friday. If you got to go, and if your visa is running out, go and, I mean, don't just go and do something crazy, but you know what I'm saying. If you wanted to confess to someone that you want to get married now before your visa runs out, and let us know how we can help you. We're not marriage counselors down here, by the way. So yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Dharminder, and you've been always amazing, and thank you very much for providing the information. Now, I'll quickly cover up. I want to really take the questions from the online sessions. Now, I'll quickly cover up the Global Talent Independent Program requirements. So, candidates who might not be able to secure, let's say, skill visas, might be able to secure a Global Talent Independent Program as well. Where there are two kind of candidates who can qualify for this visa. Number one is the cohort of the people who are a graduate from a research courses. Let's say, for example, Masters by Research, where they have more than 80% of their they have achieved more than 80% of the in their final results. And then other people are who have completed a PhD degree. So these are the people who can qualify to apply for a global independent program in one of the 7 industries that the department has announced, which is including fintech, agriculture technology, medical technology, cybersecurity, quantum information, and ICT, data science, and there are other couple of industries as well that I can't recall from my memory. Financial technology. So yes. So these are the industries where you can qualify, and there is another cohort of the clients who can qualify as well. People who are working in this industry, 7 industries. People who are working in this industry and are able to at least earn minimum 153,600 a year. So if your salary is there and you don't have a research degree or a master's by research degree or a PhD, that's completely fine. If you are earning this much, you can still qualify for, and I think it's worth applying for your express of interest for a global independent program. Now, yeah, that's all about the global independent program, and this is a permanent visa, directly a permanent visa. Now, as Parth mentioned, that the allocation has gone from 5,000 to 15,000, which is 3 times compared to the last year. So that means the department is really saying that yes, the global independent program is here to stay, and it is going to stay, and that's one of the priority as well, which is quite evident from the numbers allocated to this visa. Now, going through the details, we did one live session yesterday about the global independent program, detailing only about this visa. So if you are looking to understand more about this visa, I would suggest you go back and watch that video from yesterday. I did that live session yesterday evening only. So, but yeah, if you have any questions, you can always throw up in the comment box and we'll try and answer. Now we'll take the questions from YouTube channel first, and then we'll go back to Facebook as well. So YouTube, somebody's asking, Mahar is asking.
Sorry to disturb you. Before you go on a questionnaires, I would definitely like to cover up that refund point, because I think a lot of people who are stuck overseas or who has not visited Australia, there was a very important announcement in the budget regarding the fees refund. It's very important for our viewers to know that they will be eligible for the refunds if they have never made to Australia, or they've been forced to, go back to their home country. So everyone who is watching, if you have applied for your visitor visas before in come to Australia and never been to Australia because of this pandemic, someone who has applied for the working holiday visa, or even the Pacific arrangement visa as a seasonal worker visa, or even 482 visa, that's employer sponsored, but your employer is not in a critical sector, let's say cook or chef, and they could not come to Australia. Now, in the budgetary announcement, the immigration and the treasurer himself announced the refund and the allocation of the funds to refund those applicants who could not come back to Australia. So make sure you can use that facility if you have not been to Australia during this period of pandemic. You can apply for your refund for your visitor visa fees or working holiday visa fees, or and even the 482 visa fees or whatever. So we definitely posted detailed information about a few days ago on our Facebook page. So you can go through that. If you have any questions regarding those as well, you're more than welcome to post those questions on our Facebook, as in just live right now. And that was one of very important part as well. And just quickly covering up the second thing, we've got an announcement from Immigration SA today regarding the allocation of the state migration programs. So I'm sure a lot of people are asking those questions about the state migration. So when is that opening and all this kind of thing. So finally, Immigration SA has sent out an email newsletters to all the registered people with them, that they might not be able to finalize the allocations until end of November. So they're still negotiating with Department of Home Affairs, and I'm sure that this is the same arrangement for all the states. So what we expect from our end is basically the state migration program 190 or the 491 could be delayed for all the other occupations, apart from the critical sector occupations. So Department of Home Affairs allocated interim allocations to all the states to sponsor some of the critical sector occupations like registered nurses, mechanical engineering, people who are working in the critical sector as in manufacturing or health professionals and all those kind of things. So, but because of this delay in the allocation or the negotiation between the state and the federal department, the next phase of the state nomination announcement could be towards late November. It's not a very good news for a lot of students who are having the visas expiring this month or next month, and not a very good news for some of the non-pro rata or non-critical sector occupations as well, because of the COVID pandemic and stuff. But as soon as we have some more information about the allocations, the planning levels and all those kind of thing, we'll definitely do another live sessions and we'll provide you information. But during this period of arrangements as an interim allocations, the Immigration SA, or I think the most of the state authorities are still processing the state nomination for those critical sector occupations. They're still sending out the invitation. So we received 4 or 5 invitations today as well to apply for the state nominations. All the occupations are obviously registered nurses, someone who is working as an engineer as well. So those occupations where it's making an impact towards the economical recovery as well. So just I wanted to quickly cover up those 2 topics. You can go ahead, Vaibhav, for the question.
Thank you very much, Tejas, for bringing that into light as well. And it's really helpful. Obviously, I'm sure that a lot of people would really need that money as well, because not everybody has the access to the money in this kind of situation right now, where many people have lost a job as well. So that's really grateful to you that you brought that to our attention as well. So thank you, Tejas. Now, moving forward, we have a few questions on our YouTube channel as well. So which probably I will take and go back to our Facebook as well. Now, the first question from Mahar is, how many chances, what are the chances for the borders to open up in February intake in Sydney? I think, Mahar, the chances of borders opening up in Sydney very soon is not the case at all. I think at least you're looking at mid 2021. So I don't think the borders will open until then. Now the next question is from Origin. So the name, I'm not sure whether it's the right name, but so how much time would it take for the 482 grant? So Prince, would you be able to answer this question? Prince, can you hear me? Prince, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. It's pretty uncertain for me to answer this question, like how long it will be exactly, because prior to COVID or this lockdown we had in Australia, so the processing, on an average processing time was probably 3 to 5 months, I would say. But since we have been in lockdown and since this COVID thing started, it's pretty variant at this stage, because we have seen cases where we've been waiting for almost 6 to 8 months and we haven't had any response. But there has been some cases where if your occupation is under critical sector, say I had one general practitioner who applied for for a 2 visa whose TSS visa was granted in probably 4 weeks of time. So, depending on the occupation. But I would say, as everybody know, that the way department is looking to deal with the COVID-19 situation is to prefer those occupations as a priority to grant them the visa if your occupation is in critical sector. If it's not under critical sector, it may take anywhere from 4 to 8 to 10 months roughly at this stage. That's all I can say. I mean, but there's no time frame limit at the moment for the department, from the department for the TSS visa application process.
Thank you, Prince. And while you're there, I've got one more employer sponsorship question, which is
Sure.
Amit Bishta is asking that he or she has applied for 186 PRT as a cook in September 2019, and it's been already 13 months. What do you think, an expected time that they should expect an answer in?
Right. Thanks, Amit. The on an average processing time is about 12 months, but again, sometimes it takes a bit longer than what the processing time frame has been published by the department. So I would say if you just have to have a look onto the department website, what's the current processing time? We had few in the past, but all of the application has been approved from the department, and on an average, the department processing time was about 8 to 10 months. That's how long it took. But there has been, like with my experience, I think within last so many years we've been working, there has been only one application which almost took about 18 months for the grant. But on an average, 10 to 12 months is the right time frame for ENS 186 under transition stream. Now, if you, just make sure with your agent, whoever process your application, all the documents are up to date. You have updated the financial for the business, recent financials for the business to the department, and make sure your police check and your health examination and everything is up to date. And if everything is up to date, I don't think you have to wait, more than another 1 month or 2 months.
Thank you very much, Prince. Now, the next question is about partner visa. So, Mr. Davinder, if you can take that question. Perry is asking, what's your advice for a fiance visa from for a Filipino girl? So, I think somebody's in Philippines, has a fiance in Australia. What do you think? What is your advice?
Okay, cool. Thanks for the question at the same time. Look, if he's here and his fiance is in Philippines, if he wanted to expedite this fast, previously they would come down here, they could lodge onshore if they've had some relationship evidence already. Then the waiting time is seemingly down here, so that they don't have to worry about being apart and all the rest of it. In this particular situation where people can't travel, borders not going to be opening, and knowing that processing time seemingly is now, being made to appear faster, apply on a basis that is de facto. If they have already been married, so obviously they're not because there's fiance, then apply on the basis of a offshore de facto evidence that they have, and then lodge an application and just wait. Whilst waiting, if the borders open up and if they wanted to come down here, she's more than happy to come down on a visitor visa, in and out. And there's nothing that you can do to expedite the application, if that's the question.
Right. Thank you very much. And now, while I have you there, one more question for a skilled visa, not the partner. So Prince is asking that he's in Western Australia, software engineer. He's got 80 points for 190 visa, and EOI lodged on 25th of July. What do you think our chances are?
Goodness me, the chances are that the entire program is suspended at the moment. So that explains the answer. You're talking about a 190, 491, am I right, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah. So whatever interim visas or quotas they had, that's all been exhausted already, supposedly. So the recent announcement on October 1st, whoever were invited and dealt with, up until October 5th, they were accepted and approved. So anything going forward, we haven't had any direction from the state nomination team as to when they are going to be coming or even considered. I've got clients who are on 95 points, agricultural scientists and what have you, mechanical engineers on 100. They're just not invited because they're not critical list. So if someone has applied since then, the chances of actually even being considered for the 190 or 491, I don't see that happening probably the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months, I dare say.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Just to add that during the partner visa, what I'm doing, I'm just sharing my experience as in what I've done for recently one of the offshore client who was stuck in China for partner visa. So the applicant is obviously an Australian citizen. So what they have done is basically, obviously they went overseas as an Australian citizen. He can get an exemption to travel overseas. He can get married there, and he can apply for the exemption of the partner, which is pretty easy if you're a partner of the Australian citizen or permanent resident. And normally you don't really need an exemption as well. Once you get married, obviously, just for the paperwork, you get an exemption approved. Use that exemption to apply for the visitor visa, which is also granted. Now she has went from China to Brazil, and now she's traveling from Brazil to Australia now, just on a visitor visa. So because they were either, if they are married overseas and applying for the exemption, obviously they will be able to come into Australia, being in relation with someone who is an Australian citizen or partner, and then either get married here, or if they already got married overseas because of relationship and all, obviously after they already applied for the partner visa, and they can come through that exemption period or exemption pathway as an option, and they can pretty much come to Australia straight away. So that could be another option for someone who is getting married overseas. And if being an Australian citizen, you can get an exemption to travel overseas anyway.
Sorry, Tejas, just to piggyback on that. So if you're saying specifically to expedite the time frame, it's a case-by-case basis of whether even...
This is not going to obviously fast-track the processing, but obviously it will fast-track the reunion of the applicant and the sponsor. So obviously the couple can live together much faster than the overall processing time. We are not worried about much of the processing time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the processing time will be really depend on the number of allocations, the document strength, and all those kind of factors, which is absolutely fine. But if they are looking at just to how soon they can bring the partner from overseas, then this could something I can recommend as well.
I did that. I applied for a good guy who's from here, Australian citizen, obviously, and the applicant, the partner was from Venezuela. Actually, it's not Venezuela. I'm using another country at the same time because I don't want to use the right country. Did all the excuses, did all the exemptions, not granted twice. So wow. It's a case of trial and error. Give it a go. You're right, spot on. And if it happened, brilliant.
Yeah, no, definitely they should be doing that because even the budgetary announcement, I think they would be more relaxing on the travel exemption waivers and stuff, the travel exemptions approvals. So they should be granting more exemptions because they are putting through extra workforce or extra resources into process to the exemption applications as well. So they should be allowing more people to either fly in who is a relative to Australian citizen or permanent resident on a certain grounds. But that's something I would recommend as well, definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Tejas, for coming forward and for providing your sharing your experience as well. Now we'll move forward to the next question, which is for the for a cook, basically. So the question is that the applicant has completed master's in professional accounting and also has a skills assessment as a cook and wants to know whether they should proceed further as a cook and what are the chances to get a PR as a cook, or whether they should proceed further as an accountant. So Parth, would you be able to take this question?
Yeah, sure. So for any applicant having skills in accounting and in cookery, looking at the current scenario, I recommend that going through trade occupation cookery as a cook or as a chef will be a better choice. If you already have experience in that occupation, you may possibly, as of now, look at options such as employer-sponsored visa, so that you can get some time. In the meantime, you can look at other GSM visas at the same time as well. If you are having 3 years of full-time experience as a chef, possibly you can look at 186 visa, which is directly permanent residency. If you don't have that, you can possibly look at 482 visa, which requires at least 2 years of full-time experience. So that visa will be granted for 4 years. You work for at least 1 more year. And then with 3 years altogether, you can still apply for 186 visa under the occupation chef. If you are a cook, then 186 visa is not an option. So if you don't have much time left on your current visa, you can possibly look at 482 visa if you already have 2 years of full-time experience as a cook, and you can be granted for 2 more years of visa on like a 482 visa. During that 2 years of time, you can look at the state-sponsored visas, because looking at this year, as we were discussing earlier as well, it doesn't look like department under 189 anyway won't be possible for Cook. But then state-sponsored visas, most of the states, they are considering applicants under these critical sectors. Looking at that, I don't think accountants or even trade occupations, including cook or a chef, will be invited until next year, June, until next year's budget is announced. So looking at that, you will need some time as of now. So possibly you go for a visa which gives you some time, and possibly next year you can look at the budget, and accordingly you might have options of state-sponsored visa. So you can look at that options, or ultimately if you already got 2 years full-time, 3 years full-time experience, possibly you can look at employer-sponsored visas.
Thank you very much, Parth, for that. And now, obviously, I know we are about the time limit already. So if the panelist doesn't mind, I probably would like to take a few more questions before we close our session for today. The next question is from Abhishek Verma. The question is that I personally filed a EOI for a GTI program under the cybersecurity with salary of 60K and got a negative outcome. And I've done a master's degree and my new salary is 122, which is also not as good as what is expected in the GTIP threshold, which is correct. And the company is happy to give the recommendation, but they can't give the potential offer letter for 153,600. Now that I would probably take this question. So Abhishek, I think you should wait for yourself to go up a little bit. Let's say probably if you have gone from 60K to 122K, I would suggest that you wait for some more time. And yes, if you want to try, yes, it's still worth trying, because now you have got a record that you were in January 2020, you were at 60K, now you're at 122K. That means you have got almost 200% rise in 1 year's time, technically. So if you can show that logical arguments that that you will be able to have this kind of improvements in your salary in the longer run, yes, definitely it's worth trying, even though you're not at 153,600, but you are at 122, and your history shows that you went from 60K to 122K in 1 year's time or so, right? So that should probably be the best way for now, if you can't get the salary in next few months or next few maybe at least next 1 year. Now the next question is from Satnam. So the question is that I have applied for a PR at 85 points in engineering technologist in February 2020 and 90 points at 15th of October 2020. My 485 visa is about to expire. What shall I be doing? And so anybody from the panel would like to take this question?
Get married.
Yes, so if you can take that, Vinder. So the question, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I was just going to say get married, if that's the option.
I'll take that, Vibhav. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So Satnam is asking that I've applied for a PR, so that means expression of interest actually, 85 points in February 2020. Now she has got 90 points in October 2020, 15th October, and 485 visa is expiring very soon. What is the way?
Right. So in terms of the skill migration visa options, obviously, if you're looking at the 189 program, the mostly required would be 90 points. Again, you're talking about the allocation of the ceiling, which is 6,500 among all the critical sector occupation. So what we believe, or what we get the feel from department, is obviously they will be more focused on the priority migration skilled occupation list as a PMSOL for the rest of the financial year, just to fill that 6,500. And it's not necessarily for department to fill the whole number as well. It depends on the labor market as well. If there is a strong labor market for this occupation, obviously they will invite more people. So they constantly get more information from Department of Bureau and Statistics and all those kind of different departments to understand what is happening with the Australian unemployment ratio, the labor market, and all those kind of thing, to design that 189 and the number of invitations they issue in certain occupations. If you talk about the state nomination options, if you're already working in a critical sector, as in manufacturing in Victoria, let's say if you're from Victoria, then there is a chance if Victoria will start inviting people with this engineering technologist occupation as they were doing before, then there's a chance you might get the invitation for the state nomination. But again, as far as I know, and the criteria may remain same, you'll have to have a job offer and you must be currently employed as an engineering technologist in Victoria to get the invitation for state nomination. But for 189, we really have to see the trend. As everyone knows that there was no invitation round for October yet, and we're hopeful that it will be announced before the end of the October. But we also know that mostly the occupation focus would be still the critical sector occupations only. So I guess to improve the chances, it will be mainly about the employment in the critical sector is in manufacturing.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Tejas, for providing the insights. Now, the next question is from Bandana Chaudhary. Probably I'll take that question. The question is, I'm RN at 80 points for 189 and 85 points from 190, working full-time in Sydney since May 2020. What will be the best option? Should I move to the regional area or stay in Sydney? So, Bandana, I would suggest that, yes, while you have an EOI already running for 189 at 80 points, now, as my colleague mentioned, that it really depends on whether the department will invite all the occupations or pick a specific occupation. So if they go only invite, let's say start inviting only RNs, then definitely the chances are that the cutoff will go down to 80-85 points as well, which has happened in the past too. So, but yes, otherwise, if you don't see that happening in next couple of months, I would recommend that you look into, let's say, moving to Canberra or Tasmania or South Australia, where there is a state nomination options open for 190, where you simply work for 6 months or so, and you can secure the 190 nomination, right? Now, one more question. That's probably be the last one now. But don't worry, any questions posted in our comment box, we will certainly address each and every question and reply to them by replying by typing to your questions. So the last question is that Parth, if you can take that, because that's from Victoria. So Kiran is asking that one of the client in Werribee office, and just want to know whether 190 Victoria for nurses, what are the chances?
Yeah, if you are a nurse, most likely you will be selected by Victorian state government, even if you have lesser points. So you have very good chances. However, they have some particular occupations in which, even for the nurses, they are looking for some particular occupations. So possibly see whether you can get skills assessment under that particular occupations. Otherwise, you can apply for the occupation called registered nurse not elsewhere classified. Or anyway, you can speak with your consultant in a Werribee office actually, and they will be let you know what occupations you may possibly apply for. Because I have seen that for some of the occupations, they are giving priority. They are selecting that occupations rather than any other registered nurse occupations. So they have some like 7-8 occupations under registered nurse category as well, which they are giving priority. So see whether your occupation is assessed under that particular occupation. If not, possibly you may also apply for another skills assessment to improve your chances.
Thank you so much, Parth, for taking that question. And viewers, thank you very much. We have received an email.
Sorry, before you conclude the whole session, I just want to quickly cover up one new development from immigration essay point of view. There are a lot of students who will obviously keep asking about the state nomination options in our Facebook, the session we're doing right now. So as of now, the immigration essay is still inviting for the critical sector occupations. Now, the state nomination criteria were different before June, and during this interim allocation period, they've actually changed the state nomination criteria. And anyone who is working in the critical sector, as in your nominated occupation, as long as they're working 3 months in South Australia, you can apply for your state nomination expression of interest. And if the state invites you to lodge a state nomination, you can apply for your state nomination. Now, the reason I'm covering up this right now, before we stop the session, is basically some of the occupation like mechanical engineering or any engineering occupation. Before June, the requirement for the experience was 3 years. Now, after this July, during the interim allocation, the requirement has been waived off. The only requirement right now is 3 months experience. So there are a couple of clients who are working in South Australia, but before June, they were not eligible for it because they didn't have that 3 years experience, which was required for the immigration essay as a minimum experience requirement. But during this interim allocation, they've actually waived off those. And as long as you're working from last 3 months, you can apply for your state nomination. So what I would highly recommend is anyone who is either getting a job in critical sector in South Australia, or anyone who's already working in critical sector in South Australia, they should definitely consider applying for the expression of interest. And you can expect an invitation from Immigration SA to apply for the state nomination. If you're not eligible before, but you might be eligible now because of those changes. So check out the changes with our office here.
Thank you very much, Tejas, and I really appreciate you coming forward and bringing the best information that is available right now, and concerns that are actually client centric, and then the people who really have those concerns. Yes, I really appreciate that the way you have been engaging. It's quite commendable, because that we really appreciate the way you've come forward and address those concerns. Because I guess, yes, you're right that many candidates would have, or many applicants would have similar questions that are in their mind. And if we are able to cover those ones, yes, we would love to cover those questions as well. So thank you very much, viewers, for joining us today for tonight's live session. And I would highly appreciate if you can appreciate the work from our panelists as well, that you understand that they have taken time out from their busy schedule, and it's a Friday night and they're not out for drinks yet, and they're still here. So thank you very much, Prince, for joining today. And so thank you very much for providing the information, Prince.
Thank you.
Tejas, thank you very much for joining as well. And as I said, very commendable that you've come forward and addressed few concerns from your end.
That's so good. Thank you.
Parth, thank you very much for joining us as well. And I know you've got calls coming in as well. So I'm sure that you're going to have a few more calls to finish as well. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Evo.
And Mr. Daminder, thank you very much for joining as well and providing information on a partner visa, and encouraging people to go out and have drinks tonight and find the right partner for them.
Never know. Somebody can be lucky.
Yeah, somebody can be lucky. That's correct.
You got to try. You got to try. You just got to go out there and make it happen.
But that intention should not be filing a partner visa. Finding a right partner for your life is a different story.
Obviously.
Right. So thank you very much, viewers, for joining us tonight. And as I mentioned before, that we do provide assistance with migration, education, professional admissions, and we do have policy comparison websites, which is getmypolicy.com.au. You can practice NATI test on CCL tutorials, and you can also practice PTE on our PTE tutorials website as well. If you have any questions, we will definitely answer these questions in the comment box. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact our nearest branch. We are based in Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Perth, and Adelaide. So if you have any questions, and if you have, it's not a right time now for a lot of people to just try and do the applications on their own. Not because I'm saying that because we want you to come and take our services, but we do really understand now the time is that, if you miss one opportunity, that opportunity will probably not come back. So having a right agent and advising you on a right time is going to matter a lot. So, if not us, then probably, have somebody else, but then we prefer obviously that you to choose us over others. But if you do wanna, if you wanna take your application forward in the right way, probably have a right agent handling your case. So thank you very much for joining tonight, and we wish you a happy weekend, and thank you for joining us again.